Alright, my man, so I started my UI off looking like this because I know Final Fantasy can look a bit overwhelming, so I figured the best way to start would be to start it with it looking overwhelming. I've got a couple of things that I wanted to cover because I wasn't sure how far on you were familiar with the game, so I was just like, I'm going to put a couple of clips together with a couple of how-tos on how to like keep things a bit slicker and less stressful when you're kind of navigating the game. So the first thing I wanted to show you was the kind of quick cancel thing. Um, you can select anything quickly by just clicking your touchpad on your controller. So like doing that will take you to the first or nearest window. Clicking either side will cycle them anti-clockwise, so you can see, or rather the order I open them in, I think when they're all down, it kind of runs anti-clockwise. But you can see I can flick through every window that I have open, right? Now that is still really, really stressful to kind of see all this and even just do this. So I don't want any of this shit up. So the first thing I do is, this is obviously one that's like got an answer in it, where you have to do the answer. So like you have to select the answer after hitting your touchpad to highlight it. Like a wee gold ring comes around it, and you can say no. And then after that, you can click on things and just press circle. Once they're highlighted, circle closes them. No problem. Like that. Job done. It's all away. Cancelling works for anything. If you go and you target the nearest thing just by walking near somebody and hitting X, it'll target. You hit a circle and it comes off. No problem, right? If you are to if you want to soft target something, like hitting X when you're nearby something, they'll hot target something immediately. But if you use an arrow key, you will soft target, where it doesn't put a ring around them, it just has like a little rotating circle around them, as opposed to if I hit X on him now, you'll have that. So circle will cancel off. You can soft lock things to choose what you're going to lock onto before talking to them. That's important, and it kind of comes a bit. It's more important later, is what I should say, especially for dungeons and stuff. So the next thing that's kind of good to look at is the quick accessing your journal. So the way I access my journal normally is just cycling up to your quests that you've kind of got on the right hand side, and just hitting, if you go to one of the titles, it'll open up your journal and it shows you what you have, what you need to complete. Again, this looks really overwhelming because I have a habit of just selecting every goddamn quest in existence because I'm like, I'll get to it later. But they usually will tell you what your requirements are. If you hit X on any one of them, it takes you to this bit, and you can read it by scrolling up and down with the right stick, and then if you click the map, it will show you where you can access the quest on the map. And then it's the same to cancel out. You can hit square or circle to close that, and you can hit circle to close that. No problem, easy peasy. The other way to access the journal is hitting options on your controller and going along to logs, or not, it's in, sorry, duty, and then it's, just there, and it brings you to the same thing. But I find, rather than going into the start menu, just like cycling through and clicking, I have a habit of doing that. So the next function kind of helps you like edit layouts and move things that annoy you and stuff like that when you're kind of not in a dungeon, but I wouldn't recommend really using it for anything fast paced. Is simulating the mouse. So obviously you can simulate mouse with your touchpad, which is fine if you just want to quickly click onto a specific box. If you want to move stuff around though, like the chat box and stuff down here, best thing to do is do the mouse simulation, which if you hold L1 and click in the right stick, you'll get your virtual mouse. L2 is your left click and R2 is your right click. So for example, I want to move this window around, I can go onto the general, left click, and I can move the box around like so. Alright. Also I should say, like, my UI is a bit all over the place just because the way the TV is where I am right now. It was easier to have this layout rather than move everything around. I was lazy and I just was lying in bed and thought I'll just move my UI around rather than moving the plants around in the room. When you're looking at chat boxes and stuff, if you are not selecting anything, if you cycle around until you're onto the chat box, moving around with the arrows, you can move up to select names, where you can hit square and you can do options. I can send tells to my friends if they show up here, or anybody. You can change the channel you're speaking in. You can either type things like, the standard /P for party, or FC for free company, but you can just change your thing, what you're talking about. If you just go to here, click this, and you can just decide what you're going to do, or what channel you're going to chat to. Um, excuse me. The game gives you the default setup of having general, battle, and event down the bottom. Once you're on this, doesn't matter what you're doing or what you've highlighted. You hit L1, R1, you can cycle through them. General is the fine. Like, I never really use battle or event. I do have one at the end though for like my free company, so I can see all their stuff through all the messages that I get normally. Um, but I've been looking to overhaul that, but I've not done it because I'm lazy. So the next thing I was going to talk about is the HUD Layout menu. So if you hit Options, you go all the way along to the end, you can go to HUD Layout. This is a bit weird at the start, but this can help you just move stuff around. I normally use the virtual mouse for here, so I can go into use virtual mouse. I can left click cross hotbar, which is that thing, and move it left and right, whatever is appropriate. And that's just like, you know, whatever. You can see you can just left click on them with your L2 and you can move them around. Things that you don't use will just not be there for a class, but for example the Astrologian uses an Arcana gauge. If I was to change class like to a tank, you'd have like an enmity gauge, which you can do the exact same thing. You can move it around to wherever you want it, like conveniently placed. You've got your duty list as well here, everything. The only thing you can't move here really is your chat box, which is the thing I showed you how to do anyway outside of the UI. Once you're done, make sure you disable your virtual mouse or you'll be stuck here forever. And then go back to here and hit save, and then that way you'll come out of it. So the next thing I wanted to show you that's quite good and kind of like a really excellent tool to have for just using your hotbars and navigating the world, particularly in dungeons, a lot easier, is the cross hotbar feature with your controller. Obviously, if you're familiar with keyboards and stuff like that, having specific layout is really easy on a keyboard, but it kind of feels like a second language when you're doing it on a controller. So first things first, you want to do is go into your options and go along to system and go to character configuration. So you get a menu like this. If you go all the way down to the hotbar settings, you'll have loads of settings here which are a bit daunting, but what you should do is just go straight over to cross hotbar, and what you want to do is you want to go down, all the way down to always display WXHB. Okay, and so what you'll notice if you do this, it will give you another 2 hotbars on the top here along your original hotbar. Mine already have stuff in it because I was lazy. I didn't want to cancel my hotbars out, but you can. I'll show you how it all works in a second. So now that you can see that, yours will probably be empty or might have a couple of random things in it depending on what you've been doing. The next thing you want to do is go over to custom, and when you go into custom, you can see there's enable expanded controls and enable your WXHB. So you've now got that visible, so you want to enable it. So you enable it and make sure you enable directional buttons and not just only 4. If you enable only 4, you get this. If you enable directional buttons as well, you can basically double tap R2, double tap L2, and you can get into a second hotbar without having to cycle through your hotbars or try and desperately find what you're looking for and get all tripped up. So the way it works is I've set cross hotbar 3 left and right to the double taps. So if I double tap R2, I go to my hotbar setting number 3 on the right hand side, and I go to my if I do it on the left with L2, I go to my hotbar set crossbar 3 on the left hand side. So if I actually tap R1, if I go out of this menu and I tap R1, I will cycle through my hotbars. So if I'm at hotbar 1, hotbar 2, hotbar 3, and as you can see, all the ones beneath it are exactly the same as the ones on top. Alright, so going back to our hotbar, so if you set them as 3 here, those are your 2 shoulders now, as I've explained, and give that a wee try for yourself. So coming back out now, I have hotbar 1 here on the left and right, as you're familiar with already. Then you hit R1, you have hotbar 2, which I don't really use for my healer right now. and then obviously you've got hotbar 3, which you now no longer need to cycle through 3 times for, because you've now got it on your shoulders. So the reason I do it like this is, for example, and I'll show this in a bit more detail shortly, is if I am in a dungeon or whatever and I am targeting an enemy, let's say, I can, or rather targeting an ally, I can hotlock to an ally and just keep healing over and over again. Obviously it's going to heal me because it's not actually a party member. And then if I wanted to attack somebody, I can move to an attack enemy and double tap, and then I can use my attack skills on them. It's pretty straightforward, easy peasy. And then what I would do is, normally if I was in duties or stuff, I would replace these ones in here with items. So if I wanted to use quick items like potions or ethers or anything like that, I can hit R1 and then I can use items from that menu pretty quickly. So yeah, pretty straightforward. So yeah, best thing to really do is kind of show it in action a bit, so I'll just jump into a duty. So here we are in a duty. So the first thing I always do when I'm in a duty is tap down twice and click onto my healer, my tank, sorry. So the best way to target your allies if you're a healer is using the up and down keys. As you can see, if I hit up or down, I can cycle through my 4 companions, or rather my 3 companions and myself, fairly easily, right? If I cycle through them up and down and I hit X on anyone that I highlighted, I will hotlock onto that person, as I explained kind of before. So while I'm hotlocked onto me though, I can soft lock through everyone by going up and down, and then by just hitting skill action. So for example, just my basic heal is R2 and X, I will heal them one time, but it will then lock straight back onto me. So it's quite good if you're always hotlocked onto the tank and you want to just randomly heal one person, but then heal the tank straight after them. It will then heal them again, like that. Okay, fairly easy peasy. So outside of that, the first way that you could target, if it's not too overwhelming here, for example, you can see this jellyfish chasing this guy. If I was to hit left, because it's on the left side of the guy, I will soft target the jellyfish. So what I can do is I can then double tap my R2 and hit circle to apply some damage to that enemy, and I'm still hot locked to the tank. This is kind of fine in like kind of early dungeons and not a lot of enemies. See, I can cycle through these enemies using left or right, but it will also highlight companions and stuff if they happen to be in the kind of fray. So it's not completely ideal once you start getting overwhelmed. Another way you can do this, if you want to start fast targeting things, you can fast hotlock people, by holding the action, like the shoulder button of the action that you're wanting to use. So, for example, I want to do some damage here. Hold on, just make sure I don't kill this tank. I want to do some damage here, so I'm going to double tap my R2 and then hit L1. And as you can see, if I hit L1, I can cycle through everybody, and I can cycle back through them. As you can see on the bottom side here, that you get the aggro bar, or like the amount of enemies that you're currently fighting on the middle left. So as this guy will go and aggro these guys will start showing up shortly, and I can cycle through these guys, and I could just apply damage. Because once they're hot locked, you can change to the things fairly easily. Yeah, sorry if that didn't make much sense, but anyway, so that's pretty much the basics of targeting. Obviously, if this is the kind of route you're going down, because healer, that's kind of what you're doing. It's probably the most complex targeting that you're going to have to do in this game. But up and down are your best pals, really. If you want to focus primarily on healing, that's kind of all you need to know. Just make sure that if you want to heal someone multiple times, that you hotlock them, so you can spam the heal. Or if you just want to heal someone a one-off, just do it down and then your R2 and X or whatever hotbar place you've allotted your healing to. And that's that, I think. While we're in the duty, other cool things to take note of is things like loot loot will always come up on the right hand side. Again, my UI is a bit gubbed just now, but if you can cycle through it and highlight loot, it'll come up and you can decide how you want to roll for things. Oh. The other thing to note is the limit break bar, which is in the top left. As you can see, it probably won't fill up until the end of this. Even if it does fill up, we probably won't use it till the end of the duty. General rule of thumb for most things, the limit break bar is for the DPS, because obviously if a DPS uses limit, they will just do a lot of damage. For more advanced things like in other duties and trials, you may see the tank or the healer using the limit break bar. If the tank uses it, everyone gets like a defense buff. And if the healer uses it, I think it's a massive heal and res. I'm not 100% sure, I've never actually used it. It's also worth noting that the limit break bar is actually shared across all 4 party members as well. So just be aware of that. That if you do use a limit, no one else can use it after you've used it. It will regen over time, and it takes a while. So the next thing I was going to talk about was inventory. So as you notice, there's like a little thing behind my chat box that I don't really use, but some people do use it. So I'll move this out the road just now so you can have a gander. Is the kind of inventory hotbar. You can like click on this and it'll open a page of your inventory that you want to have a look at. Or you can open your character by hitting the little green dots, because those little green dots represent what you have equipped. So anyway, not a big fan. You can obviously move that around in the HUD layout thing if you wish. The way I prefer to do it is, oh hold on, move this back. So the way I normally access my character and my inventory menus is just go into options, because it's on the first line. Every time you open it up, it's always there. So just go to character, it's there, or you've got inventory and that's there as well. You can cycle through your inventory pages with L1 R1. Easy peasy, and then close with circle. Going into character, looking at gear sets. So if you end up with more than one job or class, which you probably will at some point eventually, the standard way of moving is just by changing whatever weapon that class would use, just changing your main hand, and it will automatically change you to that class. Obviously, it will just change you to that class. It will change your hotbar, as you can see down the bottom behind all the menus. But it will not equip anything that the character can have. Of course, you can equip random things to them. For example, I'll equip this, and I'll also equip these because I can use them, and then I could save that as a gear set by pressing triangle. So, that'll reassign a current gear set, sorry. So, to try that again, if you equip random things, you can go to your gear set lists, and if you go to the top, you can create a new gear set. If I do that, it will create it down the bottom there, and it's created it for machinist because I equipped the gun, and then it will save those items to that gear set. So it means I can go into this menu and I can select any one of these here, and these are all the preset gear sets that I have made for each class. So if I wanted to go my tank, I can hit that and then equip that, and it will equip all my tank gear. Or if I want to go to my trades or my miner, my symbols of land, I can go to my mining gear, and so on. There's also the feature that if you're not quite sure about what you should be wearing on a character, but you just want to wear the best shit, because your inventory and armoury chest can become overwhelmed, if you just go to recommended gear, it'll tell you what gear you should wear, and you can just hit equip, and it'll do it for you. Easy peasy. And then after doing that, you can hit triangle, and it will assign that gear to the gear slot that you have created for that character. So I'm just going to delete that one because it's essentially going to be a duplicate for me. There we go. Last thing to mention is just, as I spoke about gear sets, if you go into your armoury chest, so obviously armoury chest, anything with a little bit of paper on the bottom right means it's attached to the gear set. Normally, unless you've crafted something, if it's armour or anything or weapons that you've bought, it'll typically go into your armoury chest unless your armoury chest is full. Like mine here, weapons will go into my inventory, but if you're wondering where things go when you purchase them or get them from anywhere that are armour or weapons, they will go straight into your armoury chest.